Hey everyone, and welcome to My Truth Part 1. So, in order to tell my story, I have to start from the very beginning by telling how I came about, which is my mom's story. Now, I'm gonna forewarn everyone my life story is very, very confusing. So, if at any point you have any questions, please comment them below and I'll make sure to get back to you with the answers. I've had many people tell me different versions of the same story. So let's start. My family is from Peru. My grandfather was a sergeant of the Marines in Peru, and he was transferred to the United States alongside with his family. Now, my mother had a relationship with her high school sweetheart of 9 years. She didn't want to leave her boyfriend behind, so they decided to marry in secret because they thought that by marrying, it would stop my mom from coming to the United States. It didn't. Because my grandmother and my grandfather said, it doesn't matter if you're married, you're still coming with us. When they got to the United States, my mom was having a lot of homesickness and missed her boyfriend very much. So she got into different programs of like Afro Peruvian dancing where she met my father. Now, my father was a married man. He had a wife and he had a son, which is my older brother. My mother was friends with his wife, friends with my father, and she babysat my brother sometimes. Now, my father is a pathological liar, and his wife and my mother, unfortunately, are very gullible females. So, he lied to both of them. I don't know how they ate up this story. He told my mom his wife had cancer. Then he told his wife that my mom had cancer. They both believed it. My father pursued my mother. My mother didn't want nothing to do with him. And slowly but surely, he got to her. One thing I did ask my mother was, what did you like about my father? And she said that she liked that he was spontaneous. Now, I don't remember if my mom had called him or my mom had met up with him and told him that she was pregnant with me. And my father acted so happy and ecstatic. And he said, I'm going to propose to you and I'm going to marry you. So my mother told my grandmother and her family that, hey, I'm pregnant and he's coming to propose to me. And so my great grandparents came all the way from Peru. They dressed my mom up. They made a big feast to celebrate and do a whole big party at the house. They waited, waited, and my father never showed up. He did this to them 3 times. Needless to say, my mom was depressed. My father told my mother he had to go for business to Florida. I'm not sure which story is true on this part, but supposedly somebody either bought her a Greyhound ticket or somebody drove her all the way there. So when my mother got to Florida, she met up with my father, and my father said, I would love that you're here, but unfortunately, I have a lot of work to do right now, and I'm here on a business trip. So I will come visit you here and there when I have free time. Till then, you can stay at a friend's house. Now, these friends of his were all male friends. So these people had my mother sleep on a cold floor, pregnant, and weren't feeding her. So my mother had to find a job in Florida while she was pregnant to feed herself. My father did not send her money at all. She got tired of waiting and she just wanted to know where he was because she wanted to be with him. She found out where he was staying, I think because now there's 2 versions of the story. One was that she found a matchbook that had the hotel where he was staying at's name. Other version of the story is that my godfather came, picked her up somehow, and went to the hotel. My mom went to the hotel where my father was staying at. She went to the front desk receptionist and she asked for his name. Then she said it's a family emergency and family da da da. They gave her the room number. So she went all the way to the floor where he was at, knocked on the door, and said, "Room service." So then, who opens the door but his wife? And whole behold, his wife has a pregnant belly too. So here's my mom and his wife looking at each other, both with pregnant bellies. And then behind his wife is my father on a couch behind her in a robe with a cigar in his mouth. And my father is such a coward that he ran his ass into the bathroom and locked it while both women were banging on the door, telling him to come out for him to explain. I told you guys this was going to get a little crazy. Yes, my mother and his wife were pregnant at the same time by him. After this, my mom went back home to her family and was devastated, was distraught. She wasn't eating, she wasn't talking, she was just sleeping all day and crying all day. She went back to Peru to tell her husband that she was pregnant by someone else. Out of the kindness of his heart, he really loved her because he said, I'm gonna raise this baby with you like it's mine. Don't worry. But my mom was already not in love with him anymore. She was in love with my father. So the day came where I was born, which I was born on July 27th, 1990. My father tried to get my mom to sign papers to give up her parental rights up to him. Thankfully, the person that was in front of him said, "Excuse me, ma'am, do you want me to tell you what you're signing before you sign it? Because he's not telling you the truth." So then my mom said, "Oh, I'm not signing this," ripped up the paper and left. Thanks everyone who tuned in to part one of My Truth. I will be coming out with my part two very, very soon, possibly next week. Part one of My Truth has to do with everything that happened that led up to my birth. I really appreciate you guys tuning in and listening to my story. All right, guys, I guess I'll see you guys on part two.